My 15-year-old daughter uses a wheelchair. She was sitting by the big front window, enjoying the warm sun. She loves to watch birds at the feeder and wave to people walking by. It was a quiet, peaceful day. Then Karen from the HOA walked right up to our door without asking. She knocked hard and shouted, "No wheelchairs where people can see them from the street. It makes the neighborhood look bad and breaks the rules," my daughter said softly through the open window. "I'm just sitting here. I'm not hurting anyone." Karen got very angry. She pushed open the door, came inside without permission, and pulled a gun from her bag. She pointed it at my daughter and shot her. The loud bang filled the air as my little girl fell back in her chair, blood on her shirt. Her scared eyes looked for me one last time. Karen stood there with a mean smile and said, "Now the neighborhood looks nice and clean again." She looked proud of what she did. She didn't know the man running through the front door in full police gear was my daughter's father, a SWAT captain just back from a dangerous job. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you're watching from, and please hit subscribe for more stories where the good guys always win. The sun poured through the big front window, warming the room like a gentle hug. From her wheelchair, Mia watched the birds at the feeder, their tiny wings fluttering as they darted for seeds. A cardinal paused on the railing, bright against the soft green of the yard, and Mia waved at it as though greeting an old friend. It had been one of those rare mornings where everything felt still, where the world outside her window seemed soft, quiet, and entirely her own. She loved these moments, the sun on her skin, the birds' busy chatter, the occasional neighbor waving back as they walked by. The rhythm of the street was comforting, almost predictable. For a little while, Mia felt untouchable, as if the world had pressed pause and left her in this warm cocoon. Then came a knock, not the soft, polite kind that waited patiently for an answer. This was loud, urgent, commanding. Mia flinched, glancing toward the door, her hands instinctively gripping the wheels of her chair. She wasn't expecting anyone. Not today, not now. The knock came again, harder this time, followed by a voice that sliced through the quiet like a jagged blade. "Open up! I know someone's in there!" Mia's stomach tightened. She didn't recognize the voice at first, but it had a familiarity that made her uneasy. Her father had left early for work, and her mother was busy in the kitchen, humming softly while washing dishes. No one else should be here. She pressed herself closer to the window, hoping the figure outside might go away. But it didn't. Karen, of course it was Karen, the HOA chairwoman, self-appointed enforcer of neighborhood decorum, standing on their porch with her clipboard, like a judge ready to deliver verdicts. Her eyes scanned the yard, sharp and critical, landing finally on Mia. "No wheelchairs where people can see them from the street," Karen shouted, her voice booming across the lawn. "It makes the neighborhood look bad. You're breaking the rules." Mia blinked. She tried to keep her voice steady. "I'm just sitting here. I'm not hurting anyone." Karen's frown deepened, sharp enough to cut through glass. "Rules are rules. Everyone has to follow them." She tapped her clipboard like a drum, eyes darting back and forth, sizing up the scene as though she were inspecting a crime scene. Mia felt the first spark of anger mingled with fear. She had learned early to stay calm around Karen, but this was a new level. Karen wasn't just lecturing from the porch anymore. She was escalating, leaning toward the door, her posture rigid, demanding. From inside the kitchen, her mother's voice called out, gentle but firm, "Mia, don't provoke her, just stay inside." But staying inside wasn't the issue. Karen was already stepping over the line. The knocking became insistent, aggressive, rattling the wooden frame of the door. Mia's heart raced, a fluttering bird trapped in her chest. Then Karen tried the door. It wasn't locked, and the handle turned under her determined grip. She pushed it slowly at first, then with more force, swinging the door open and filling the entryway with her presence. The air seemed to shift, heavy with tension, as Karen stepped inside without waiting for permission, her clipboard clutched like a weapon of authority. "Excuse me," Mia's mother exclaimed, rushing to intercept her. "You can't just—" Karen waved her off. Her attention was fixed entirely on Mia. "You don't understand. This is about appearances, about respect, about rules." Her tone was tight, every word edged with frustration. Mia looked up at Karen sitting in her chair, sunlight catching the soft edges of her face. "I'm not breaking anything," she said quietly, but there was steel beneath the softness. "I just like sitting here, watching the birds." Karen's lips curled, a harsh, controlling smile. "The rules don't care about what you like. What other people see matters more than your feelings." Mia felt the room shrink around her. She pressed her hands into the armrests, steadying herself. Outside, the birds were still, as if they too sensed the shift. The cozy rhythm of the morning, the sun, the warmth, the gentle hum of life outside was gone. In its place was a tension that prickled her skin. "Mom, Dad," Mia called, her voice louder this time. Her mother stood frozen, unsure, while Karen moved closer, her steps deliberate and intimidating. At that moment, a shadow fell across the doorway, a large figure, tall and broad, unmistakably strong. Karen paused, glancing up, her confidence faltering for the first time. She hadn't expected anyone else. She hadn't expected resistance beyond a quiet protest. Mia's heart thumped in her chest. The quiet day was over. The calm of the sunlit room had shattered. Everything had changed in the span of a few frantic seconds. Karen's eyes narrowed, calculating her next move. Mia knew instinctively that whatever came next would be a test, not just of rules or appearances, but of courage. And for the first time, she felt the flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in facing it. The sun continued to stream through the window, warm and golden, casting long shadows across the floor. But the peaceful morning was gone. Outside, the birds had scattered. Inside, the tension thickened. And Karen was not going anywhere. The front door creaked under Karen's determined push, and the room seemed to shrink with her presence. Mia gripped the arms of her wheelchair, eyes flicking to her mother, who stood frozen, unsure how to stop this uninvited intruder. The morning sun still streamed through the windows, but the warmth felt distant now, almost irrelevant. Karen's gaze was sharp, cold, and fixed entirely on Mia. "You think sitting there quietly makes you invisible? You're making the neighborhood look terrible," she spat, her voice harsh, like nails scratching against wood. She advanced another step, clipboard raised as though to point accusingly, though her intentions were far more intimidating than any pen could deliver. Mia's fingers tightened around her chair. She could feel her heart racing, but beneath the fear, a spark of defiance flared. "I like sitting here," she said quietly but clearly. "I'm not hurting anyone. I'm just enjoying the sun." Karen's frown deepened. "The rules don't care what you like. You're showing everyone that exceptions are allowed. That's unacceptable." Her mother stepped forward, trying to diffuse the situation. "Karen, please, you can't just—" Karen waved her off again, moving closer with a precision that made every step feel like a threat. "Excuses don't matter. Compliance does. And you," she pointed directly at Mia, "will learn to respect the rules." Mia swallowed hard, then took a deep breath. She knew she couldn't wait for her parents to act. Karen thrived on fear. She needed a plan, a clever one. Slowly, Mia rotated her wheelchair, positioning herself slightly toward the kitchen while keeping her eyes on Karen. "If rules are so important," she said softly, "then maybe you should follow the rule about asking before entering someone's house." Karen's eyes flashed. "Don't sass me, young lady," she barked. Mia smiled faintly, not with humor but with determination. "I'm not sassing. I'm pointing out that you're breaking a rule. You came inside without asking. You need permission to be here." Karen's jaw tightened. She hadn't expected resistance like this, not calm, clever resistance. The tension in the room built with each silent second. Mia's mother glanced at her, pride mingling with concern. Mia's bar. Avery was remarkable, but Karen was unpredictable. Just then, the front door swung wider, and a shadow filled the entrance. Mia's father, returning from work, paused at the threshold. Something about the way the room felt, the stifling quiet mixed with Karen's aggressive presence, triggered his instincts immediately. "Karen," he said firmly, voice low but commanding, "step outside. Now." Karen turned, startled. She hadn't expected anyone else to intervene so quickly, her face contorted in frustration. "This is none of your business." "It is my business," he replied, his eyes scanning the room, taking in Mia's position, the furniture, and Karen's unpredictable energy. "You don't enter someone's home uninvited. You don't intimidate children. You leave." Mia, watching carefully, saw an opportunity. Karen's attention was split now, her rage at Mia tempered by her irritation with Mia's father. Quietly, Mia maneuvered her wheelchair toward the hall, positioning herself near the emergency phone. Her hands moved quickly but calmly, as if rehearsed 1,000 times. She was ready if things escalated, even just to alert the neighbors. Karen's chest heaved, her face red with fury, and for a moment it looked like she might explode. But the calculated gaze of Mia's father held her attention. Slowly, her aggression began to falter. She muttered under her breath, trying to maintain control, but the momentum was slipping from her grasp. Mia's voice, small but firm, cut through the tension. "Maybe this isn't about me at all," she said. "Maybe you're just scared that someone won't follow your rules. But that's not fair, and it's not right." Karen froze. For the first time, she realized she was trapped, not physically, but in her own expectations. Every move she could make would either violate her self-imposed authority or show weakness in front of the family she was trying to intimidate. Her breathing quickened. She looked around, eyes darting to the front door, then back at Mia's father, then at Mia herself. The walls of the room seemed to close in. She had cornered herself, and she knew it. "Fine," she hissed, trying to sound composed but failing. "This isn't over." And with that, she stormed toward the door, backing herself out of the impossible position she had created, leaving tension thick in the air like smoke. Mia exhaled slowly, her hands relaxing for the first time in what felt like hours. Her father stayed at the doorway, watching, ensuring Karen didn't return too soon. The room was quiet again, though the sun still streamed in, oblivious to the storm that had just passed. Mia looked at her mother, who gave her a small, proud smile. For the first time that day, Mia felt a surge of accomplishment. She had stood her ground. She had been clever, brave, and smart under pressure. And outside, somewhere down the street, the neighborhood continued as if nothing had happened. But inside the house, the family knew one thing clearly: Karen had been stopped for now. But the threat had escalated, and tomorrow might be even more challenging. The air in the house still felt tight with tension, like the calm after a storm that hadn't fully passed. Mia sat near the window, sunlight brushing her hair, but the warmth did little to ease the racing of her heart. Karen's retreat at the door had bought them a small reprieve, but everyone knew it wasn't over. Her father, tall and steady, leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes sharp. His mind was already running through scenarios, weighing risks, planning responses. Mia's mother paced slowly in the living room, hands wringing, trying to balance worry with resolve. "We need a plan," her father said quietly. His tone was calm but carried the weight of authority. "Karen won't just give up. She's Percy. Stent and unpredictable. But we can handle this without putting anyone in danger." Mia looked from her father to her mother. "What can we do?" she asked. Her voice was small but firm. She wanted to help, wanted to be part of the solution. Her father knelt beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "First, we stay calm. Fear is what she feeds on. The second step is communication. We set boundaries and make sure she understands she can't just come inside uninvited. And third, we make sure we're ready to protect ourselves if she tries to break those boundaries again." Her mother nodded, adding, "We should also alert the neighbors discreetly. If Karen escalates again, having support outside the house could prevent her from acting recklessly. We don't need confrontation. We just need safety and backup." Mia's fingers tapped the armrest of her wheelchair thoughtfully. "So, we show her that she can't intimidate us, but we don't fight back in a way that makes her angry?" "Exactly," her father said, smiling slightly. "We outsmart her with calm, not with anger. That's how we win." The family gathered around the kitchen table, mapping out a plan. They decided on clear rules. No one answers the door alone. Karen is never allowed inside without prior notice. They keep phones ready, neighbors informed. Mia remains safe by staying in areas where she can move quickly and alert others if needed. As they spoke, the house seemed to settle into a shared sense of purpose. There was still tension, but now it was balanced with control and strategy rather than fear. The next knock came suddenly, and the family froze. Karen, of course, hadn't given up. She stood on the porch, clipboard in hand, frowning. But this time, she didn't push the door open. Instead, she tapped insistently, muttering, "They won't listen. They'll see I'm right." Mia's father moved to the window, peering through the blinds. "She's testing us," he said. "She wants to see if she can provoke a reaction. Remember, calm, calculated, and confident. We do not give her power over us." Mia exhaled slowly. She remembered the birds outside, the small, predictable movements of the neighborhood. "I can handle her," she said quietly. "I can talk if she comes back again. I'll stay calm." Her father smiled at her, pride in his eyes. "Good. That's exactly what we need, someone steady who doesn't let fear control them." Hours passed in a tense rhythm. Every creak of the floorboard, every faint noise outside made them flinch. Yet with every passing minute, they grew more confident. Karen might be persistent, but the family was united. They had a plan, they had each other, and for the first time since the confrontation began, they felt in control. Eventually, Karen's tapping stopped. She muttered under her breath, pacing the porch as though debating her next move. Mia watched silently, her father at the window, her mother by the door. They waited, silent and composed, knowing that patience was their strongest weapon. Mia realized something important in that quiet moment. Strength didn't come from shouting, threatening, or pushing back. It came from unity, from being prepared, and from refusing to let fear take over. By evening, the sun dipped low, painting the room in shades of gold and orange. The tension had eased slightly, but everyone remained vigilant. Karen hadn't left the neighborhood, but she hadn't succeeded either. Together, the family had become a single, unbreakable unit, ready for whatever came next. And for the first time that day, Mia felt a flicker of hope that they could face Karen without anyone getting hurt. The front door remained closed, the blinds drawn. But inside, hearts were steady, minds alert, and the family united. The front door slammed with a force that rattled the pict. Ewer frames and Karen stormed inside again, her eyes wild, her clipboard clutched like a shield. This time, she was determined. She wouldn't just test boundaries from the porch, she wanted to take control. But Mia's father was ready. "Karen, stop," he commanded, voice calm but sharp, a tone honed over years of high-stakes work. "You are not allowed to enter this house without permission. Step back now, or you will face consequences." Karen ignored him. She advanced, heels clicking on the wooden floor, scanning the room like a predator assessing prey. "You all think you can ignore the rules," she shouted. "I'll show you what happens when people defy me." Mia's heart thudded, but she kept her hands steady on the wheelchair. Her mother instinctively stepped behind her, trying to shield her from the immediate threat, but her father held up a hand. "Mia, stay calm, watch me, and help when you can. Don't panic." Karen paused just inside the threshold, realizing for a split second that she had walked into a house prepared for confrontation. Her eyes darted to the phones, to the window, to Mia's father, alert, calculating, unwavering. Mia knew this was their chance. She rolled forward slightly, positioning herself closer to the kitchen counter where a small stack of notepads and markers sat. Quietly, she grabbed one, flipping it open. Her mind raced. If Karen was looking for chaos, they could control the narrative with cleverness instead of force. "Karen!" Mia called softly, loud enough to carry across the room. Karen spun around, startled by her voice. "We can settle this without anyone getting hurt. You don't have to scare us to be heard." Karen's eyes narrowed. "I scare you because you need to follow the rules." Mia shook her head. "No, you scare us because you try to take control without thinking about others. That's not fair. That's not what rules are for." Her father nodded. D from his position near the door, giving her a subtle sign to continue. Mia quickly sketched a simple diagram on the pad, showing Karen's position in the room, the furniture, and escape routes, like a mini tactical map. Then she showed it to Karen. "See?" Mia said gently. "You're stuck in the middle of the room. There's no advantage here. You can leave safely, or you can stay and cause tension. Which do you want?" Karen stared at the paper, confusion flickering across her face. No one had ever addressed her like this, calmly, logically, with evidence she could see. Mia's father had positioned himself at the door, ready to respond but not to escalate. The tension in the room was thick, but now it was paired with reasoning. "You think a drawing will make me leave?" Karen hissed. "No," Mia said quietly. "I think showing you the choice makes the difference. You don't have to prove anything. You can leave, and no one loses. Or you can stay and, well, that's your decision." Her father stepped closer, hands open, calm but commanding. "Karen, this is your chance to step out without conflict. We're not against you. We're protecting our home and each other. That's all." For the first time, Karen hesitated. Her chest rose and fell as she weighed the situation. The room seemed smaller, tighter, constraining her, as if the walls themselves had formed a barrier. Her voice wavered slightly. I'm just trying to enforce rules." Mia leaned forward, her voice soft but insistent. "And rules are good when they protect everyone. But breaking into someone's home isn't protecting anyone. It's hurting us. You can follow rules without forcing fear on people. That's the choice." Karen's hands shook slightly. She glanced at Mia's father, then at Mia. The house, united and composed, had stripped away her power. There was no yelling, no confrontation beyond words and presence, and yet she felt the full weight of being cornered. Her shoulders slumped, the defiance fading. She muttered, "Fine, but this isn't over." Mia's father kept his calm stance, slowly stepping aside. "It is over, Karen. Today it's over. You can leave peacefully, and we'll discuss any rules properly, with permission next time." Karen's eyes flicked to the diagram in Mia's hand again. Her lips pressed tightly together. She muttered something incomprehensible, and finally backed toward the door. The standoff had ended without anyone being harmed. No chaos, no escalation. Mia exhaled slowly, feeling the tension drain from her body. She glanced at her father, who nodded proudly. "Well done," he said quietly. "You used your head and stayed calm. That's how standoffs are won, without danger." Her mother came over and hugged her, relieved. "You were amazing, Mia. So brave and smart. Mia looked at Karen slipping out the door, muttering threats that sounded hollow now. She realized something important. Courage wasn't always about strength or shouting. It was about thinking clearly, staying calm, and using your mind when fear tried to take over. The house was quiet again, sun dipping low, shadows stretching across the walls. The birds outside had returned, chirping nervously, sensing the earlier tension had lifted. For Mia and her family, the standoff was over, but the lesson remained. They had faced aggression together, cleverly, safely, and with courage. And as the door clicked shut behind Karen, the family knew one thing: united, calm, and smart, they could face anything. The morning sunlight spilled across the living room, soft and warm, but the memory of yesterday's standoff still lingered like a shadow. Mia sat near the front window, scanning the yard for birds as usual. She kept one hand on the wheelchair and the other on the emergency phone, just in case. Her father and mother moved quietly round the room, speaking in hushed tones as they prepared for whatever Karen might try next. It wasn't long before the familiar tapping echoed on the front door. Mia's stomach tightened. Karen had returned. But this time, she wasn't just knocking politely, she stomped, her frustration audible with every step. She wanted results, and yesterday's standoff had clearly shaken her ego. Her father took the lead, standing tall in the doorway and gesturing firmly. Karen, this is your final warning. Step back. You cannot come inside uninvited, and you will not intimidate anyone here. We've explained the rules clearly. Leave now. Karen's lips tightened into a thin line. You think you can stop me? She spat, her voice dripping with frustration. The neighborhood will know what's happening here. I won't be ignored. Mia's mother gently guided her behind the counter, ensuring she had a safe vantage point. Mia, however, refused to shrink back. She knew that Karen's power came from fear and chaos, and refusing to panic was the strongest defense. Mia's father held up his hands. We're not trying to silence you, Karen. We're asking you to follow the rules. Real rules. You can leave safely, or you can continue acting recklessly. That's your choice. Karen's eyes darted around, calculating her options. She had planned this like a chess game, trying to corner the family into submission, but every move they made countered hers calmly and clearly. Every time she tried to escalate, Mia's father and mother stayed composed. Every threat she muttered was met with logic and unity. Mia held up the small pad she had used yesterday to diagram the standoff. On it, she had quickly scribbled a list of steps for Karen to exit safely without creating tension. See, Mia said softly, you don't need to prove anything. You can leave now, and no one loses. Or you can stay, and the whole neighborhood will. No, you acted aggressively. That's not how rules work. Karen froze, her face flushing. No one had spoken to her like this before, calm, rational, yet firm. Mia wasn't scared, and the rest of the family projected the same quiet confidence that had unraveled her attempts the day before. Rules. Rules don't mean anything if people don't respect me, Karen muttered. Mia's father stepped closer, voice steady but unyielding. Respect is earned through fairness and honesty, Karen. You don't get respect by scaring people or breaking their trust. That's the difference between power and authority. You're confusing the two. For the first time, Karen faltered. Her carefully rehearsed plan, her power over the family, was crumbling before her eyes. The longer she stayed, the worse it looked. The confidence she had hoped to project was dissolving with each calm word, each unshaken stance by the family. Her fists clenched, then unclenched, her lips quivered. I just wanted, she began, but no words could rebuild the authority she had tried to force. Mia's mother gently interrupted. You wanted what, Karen? Control? A feeling of importance? That's not how communities work. We all follow rules, but we do it respectfully. You've had the chance to leave peacefully, and now you can still make the right choice. Karen's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. She glared at them, muttering under her breath, and finally took a step back. Another. And then she was outside, muttering threats that sounded hollow now, like echoes of frustration without teeth. She had fallen into her own trap, cornered not by force but by unity, calm, and reasoning. The family exhaled collectively. The tension that had gripped the house for days began to ease. Mia turned toward the window, finally allowing herself to watch the birds again, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. Her father, nay. LT beside her, voice low but proud. You did it, Mia. You stayed calm, you stayed clever, and together we made sure no one got hurt. That's the strongest kind of courage. Her mother hugged her tightly. We're proud of all of us. We worked as a family, and that's what mattered. Rules can't protect you if people don't respect each other, but love and unity do. Mia watched Karen's figure retreat down the street, still muttering, still unhappy, but powerless. The front yard seemed brighter, more peaceful. The sun reflected off the windows and the birds returned, chirping and flitting from branch to branch as if celebrating the restored calm. The house felt lighter, freer, safer. They had faced aggression, intimidation, and fear, and they had done it together with cleverness, calm, and courage. Karen's plans had fallen, but the family's bond had risen stronger than ever. For Mia, it was more than a victory over Karen. It was proof that fear could be faced, challenges could be solved, and that bravery came in many forms, including quiet, smart, and united strength. And in that moment, the warm sunlight streaming through the window seemed brighter than ever, as if the world itself acknowledged that peace, courage, and family could always triumph over chaos. The morning sun streamed through the big front window once more, bathing the living room in golden light. Mia sat in her wheelchair, exactly where she liked to be, watching the birds flit from branch to branch at the feeder. The gentle rhythm of their movements was comforting, familiar, and deeply reassuring after the tense days they had endured. The house felt quiet but alive in a new way. The air no longer carried the tight, anxious weight of confrontation. Her father moved around the room, making coffee in a calm, measured way, and her mother hummed softly while tidying up. Even the furniture seemed to settle into its proper place, free from the echoes of chaos that had rattled the walls. Mia reached out and touched the armrest of her wheelchair, feeling the smooth surface under her fingers. She thought back to the days when Karen had stormed in, shouting and demanding, trying to dominate the space with aggression. It felt unreal now, like a storm that had passed but left a lesson behind. Her father glanced at her and smiled. "You know," he said, leaning against the counter with his coffee mug in hand, "you were incredible, calm, smart, and brave. You helped us all stay focused and safe. That's not easy for anyone, especially someone your age." Mia felt a small swell of pride. She remembered how scared she had been at first, how the fear had pressed against her chest like a heavy weight, but she also remembered staying calm, thinking clearly, and speaking up when it mattered. She realized courage wasn't always about fighting. It was about thinking, staying clever, and standing together. Her mother sat beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "And we all learned something too," she said. "Rules are important, yes, but people matter more. Kindness, respect, and family. That's what makes a home safe. That's what makes a neighborhood strong." Outside, the birds continued their morning dance. A cardinal landed at the feeder, just like before, and Mia waved at it. She felt a quiet joy, knowing that the peaceful moments she loved weren't gone. They had simply been tested. Her father added, "Not everyone will follow the rules, Mia. Karen showed us that. But bravery and cleverness, our ability to think, to stay calm, to act as a family, protects us. That's something no one can take away." Mia smiled. She remembered the first day she had sat by the window, watching the world quietly, unaware of what was to come. That day had been peaceful. That day had felt safe. But more importantly, she realized that the calm could always be reclaimed. Not because the world is safe, but because they knew how to face it together. The family gathered in the living room, a subtle quiet filling the space. They talked softly, laughed gently at small memories, and shared stories of clever ideas and funny moments from the previous days. It was ordinary, yes, but in its ordinariness, it felt extraordinary. Peace had been restored, not by avoiding challenges, but by meeting them together. Mia leaned closer to the window, resting her chin on the back of her hands. She watched a group of birds swoop down to the feeder. The sunlight caught their feathers, making them shine. She felt a deep sense of hope, realizing that life could continue beautifully, even after the storm. Her father knelt beside her wheelchair. "Every time you sit here, watching the world, remember this: courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through calm thinking, clever ideas, and standing together. That's what saved us." Mia nodded slowly, feeling the truth of his words. She knew the neighborhood would have its rules, and not everyone would follow them. But she also knew that cleverness, courage, and family could protect those you love, even in the most unexpected situations. As the sun rose higher, filling the room with warmth, Mia smiled. The world outside was still moving, still unpredictable, but inside the house, hearts were steady, minds were clear, and a family stood together, stronger, wiser, and full of hope. The birds continued their dance, the sunlight continued to glow, and Mia, in her wheelchair by the big front window, finally felt the peace she had been waiting for. And for the first time in days, the house was truly quiet, not tense or fearful, but calm, safe, and alive with the simple beauty of everyday life.